You're joking. Not another one?
The UK is heading to the polls for the third time in 2 years. Prime Minister Theresa May called a snap election for June 8th.
That the only way to guarantee certainty and stability for the years ahead is to hold this election and seek your support for the decisions I must take.
Why now? A big factor is her Conservative Party's slim majority in Parliament. She faces defeat on major issues if rebel Conservatives side with opposition lawmakers in parliamentary votes. And she wants to strengthen her hand heading into Brexit negotiations. Who is she up against? The biggest opposition party is Labour, led by Jeremy Corbyn.
Have a fair chance to get on in life, because our country will only succeed when everyone succeeds.
Mr. Corbyn is a veteran left-winger beloved by young activists, but less popular than Mrs. May among the majority of voters. Though in recent weeks, he's been narrowing the gap. Mrs. May called the election hoping to exploit Labour's poor approval ratings. At the time, the centre-right Conservatives had a commanding lead in the polls and looked headed towards a landslide victory. But as campaigning has progressed, the election looks like it will be much closer. The next biggest opposition parties include the Scottish National Party and the Liberal Democrats. What's at stake? The recent terror attacks on British soil have put security center stage. For Mrs. May, it's a double-edged sword. She knows the issue inside out, having spent 6 years in charge of Britain's Home Office, the government department responsible for counter-terrorism. But there could be major backlash if the ongoing terror investigations reveal failings by the police or security services.
She was at the Home Office for all this time, presided over these cuts in police numbers, and now is saying that we have a problem.
What we've done, moreover, is ensured that police have the powers they need to deal with the terrorists.
And then there's that other major issue.
Who has the will, and crucially the plan, to deliver on Brexit and make a success of it?
The outcome of this election won't reverse Brexit, but it will determine what Brexit looks like. EU membership means access to Europe's so-called single market. People, goods, and services freely move around the Union as if the member states were one country. Both Labour and the Conservatives are committed to leaving the single market, though Labour have promised to cut some of Mrs. May's plans.
But with his position on Brexit, he will find himself alone and naked in the negotiating chamber of the European Union.
Both parties say that leaving the single market is the only way to curb immigration and allow Britain to sign independent trade deals. The SNP and the Liberal Democrats want to remain as close to Europe as possible. How will this play out? When Mrs. May called the election, it seemed like a fait accompli. But the Conservatives' lead in the polls has narrowed dramatically since campaigning began. The party's manifesto was poorly received. A complex plan to finance elderly care, dubbed a dementia tax, bombed with older voters. And Mrs. May has been widely criticized for refusing to participate in live television debates.
Why can't Theresa May come to a debate, present her case and her government's record, and have a debate about the direction of our country?
Well, I'm interested, in the fact that Jeremy Corbyn seems to be paying far more attention to how many appearances on telly he's doing.
Meanwhile, Labour is doing better than expected. Their manifesto is packed with policies with broad appeal, like proposals to pay for college tuition and childcare. Nevertheless, most signs point to Mrs. May keeping the keys to number 10. But with a tightening gap between the two parties, the election may end up a bigger gamble than she was hoping for.